Let's compare boxes. And in my next video, we'll compare the zip ties that comes with the system. So now that the Nintendo Switch 2 is in our grubby little hands, I have my first ever physical Nintendo Switch 2 game here with Mario Kart World. And as someone who likes to collect physical games and just watch them rot on my shelf, I did want to point out some of these similarities and differences with original Switch game cases. So right off the bat, like the main difference that really pops out at you is the ESRB logo is a bit bigger. But also, this game case is red, which we can compare to the kind of translucent game case of the original Switch. I think it's an interesting choice. Like, it obviously differentiates Switch 2 games from original Switch games. I do think there are some downsides to it. First off, like, you know, I liked with the original Switch game cases that since they were translucent, you could have this like artwork inside of the actual game case. And a lot of times, like here with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, for example, you could put the instructions inside, which I feel like was a nice little throwback to instruction manuals. Whereas with the Nintendo Switch 2 cases, it's all red, so, you know, I feel like I'm looking at a Virtual Boy. Also, in the past, Nintendo would release red cases for very specific, like, Mario occasions. I believe we got it for New Super Mario Bros. Wii, as well as Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. So now it feels a little bit weird that we're getting this red case, because, I don't know, I just kind of associate that with, you know, special edition Mario games. Another big change is with the logo on the top of the box art. Once again, I'm honestly not the biggest fan of how the Switch 2 does this. With the original Switch, it was just like this little red box in the corner of the art, which, you know, it doesn't take up too much space. You still get to see the full artwork shine. Whereas with the Switch 2, it's like this giant banner. It makes the artwork feel really cramped. Like, I just feel claustrophobic just looking at this. And once again, it doesn't help that the ESRB logo is bigger on the Switch 2 box. So I'm not the biggest fan of that. Also, I'm still just not the biggest fan of the Switch 2 logo. I don't know what else they could have done to make the logo look better, but something about the Switch 2 logo, like, it feels off to me. Like, it feels off balanced, and it also feels so just cramped, and like there's so much to look at here. And having it right in the center, I don't know, once again, it kind of throws me off a little bit. I don't know what's wrong with me. The one thing I will say that I like about the banner is that I like that it evenly just goes from the front cover to the spine here on the side. Whereas with the original Switch box art, it was just this little square and then it kind of goes into the full red spine. And hey, speaking of which, I guess we can also talk about the spine. They now have artwork on the spine, which, I don't know, I think we'll have to wait and see, you know, as we build up our Switch 2 physical game collections, how this looks on a shelf to have all of these different artworks next to each other. It may just be the OCD in me, but I like the sort of simplicity and the continuity of just having all red spines with the original Switch. But I'm not completely opposed to having artwork on the spine too. Like, I think that could make for a really fun and colorful looking physical game collection. This on the bottom, I'm not the biggest fan of. Nintendo updated their logo a while ago to include like the red background. So whenever you see a Nintendo logo, it's usually with a red background. So you just have this like red rectangle here on the bottom of the case. Whereas with the original, since it was all red, it just kind of like blended in. I'm also not the biggest fan of that. Going to the back of the boxes, for whatever reason, they made like all of the warnings here on the bottom take up more of the back of the box. I don't know if this is specifically with Mario Kart World or if all Switch games are like this, but once again, this giant portion here, you know, talking about like all the warnings and stuff, it makes the actual artwork feel really cramped. Like, I mean, look at this. I think it's literally 50% of the back of the box is taken up by just these warnings here. Whereas with the original Switch, it was just like kind of like a third of the bottom of the back cover. So that's a little weird. I don't know, just all of the artwork here feels really cramped. Like, it's giving me anxiety. I mean, I think it's good that you can kind of clearly tell which one is a Switch 2 game and which one is an original Switch game. Although I'm just now noticing on the back of the box, it's a bit difficult to tell. Yeah, I don't know, I'm sure we'll get used to it, obviously, as time goes on. But I do like the, you know, sort of simplicity and just the uniformity of the original Switch game cases. Now, in terms of size of the boxes here, they are pretty much the same. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but darn near exactly close to being the exact same size. Now going inside of these boxes, once again we have like the red translucent versus like the clear translucent. But if we pop out these actual game cards here, the game cards themselves are actually quite similar, which I guess is to be expected because there are actually some quote-unquote Switch 2 games, you know, they have Switch 2 on the box, but they also play on the original Switch as well. So yeah, like the game cards themselves are pretty much the exact same as the original. In fact, I would imagine it has to be the exact same. The only obvious difference here is that Switch 2 game cards are red compared to the black of the original. So if there's anything to take away here, it's that, you know, Switch 2 is red. Like, it is just all red. Everything is red. But once again, you have the Switch 2 logo on the top, which, again, I think it looks very cramped. It's hard to even read it because it's so small. You know, compare that to the original Switch cartridge, and you can easily read Nintendo Switch here. This just looks like a tiny little, like, speck of dust on the game card. But for the most part, they look pretty much the same. Like, the red rectangle at the top takes up, I believe, like the exact same amount of space on the actual artwork here. The backs are also pretty much the same, it looks like. I did get a chance to do a taste test of these on stream, and I can confirm that they do both taste terrible. But that is pretty much all of the similarities and differences between these two cases. Let me know in the comments if you guys prefer the original Switch boxes or Switch 2 boxes. If you want to watch another one of my Switch 2 videos, check out the video below. For now, thank you so much for watching. My name is Chase, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.